Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in. I've got a few minutes here before I get out and shovel. We got dumped on last night. We got about a foot of snow, super heavy, super wet snow. And I got to get out and start shoveling it because it's going to take me quite some time. I know a lot of you guys are like, well, get a snowblower, have somebody come and plow it. I do it old school. I do it with a shovel. It takes me a while. It's still a good form of exercise is how I look at it. But I would much rather be doing 3 inches versus a foot of snow. Anyways, so today's topic, guys, is a really good one that it's an old school tip that I learned from Mike DeVere during an old FLW tour event on Beaver Lake. If you're familiar with the old FLW tour, one of the major sponsors was Walmart. So we used to go to Rogers, Arkansas, which is the home of Walmart, and that's where Beaver Lake is. So every year on the schedule, we went to Beaver Lake, one of my favorite lakes. I would love to go back. Haven't been there probably in 5 years at this point. But while we were there, I got on a phenomenal jerkbait pattern. And this is one of those instances where I learned if a front goes through the second day of the front, when you get bluebird skies, those fish probably will not come up and bite a jerkbait. But I was trying to force it at the time. And after working over an area for quite some time, I could not muster up any bites. I ended up switching over to just a drop shot, and I think I caught 2 little spotted bass in this area. My co-angler at the time was Mike DeVere, who's from Kentucky, and he showed me how good that this contraption could work. And what he did is, at that point, you know, I kept telling him, I'm like, I know there's fish here. I know there's fish here. And we were in an area that had, you had the shot at catching a largemouth, a smallmouth, or a spotted bass. It was just kind of like a channel swing bank transition area. And we were running a lot of that stuff. I had a good first day doing it, and I just couldn't make it happen the second day. And about halfway through the day, he pulls out a big jig with a big trailer, and I looked at him like, you got to be nuts. And it was black and yellow. And I'm like, that is one of the ugliest looking jigs I've ever seen. And, you know, keep in mind, we were down towards the dam on Beaver Lake. We were in water where you could see 10 feet deep, super clear, just not where you would pull out a big jig, let alone a black and yellow jig. Like, I had never seen anyone throw a black and yellow jig. Well, let's just say over the next hour, he proved to me that those fish were still in that area. He caught a limit, a nice limit at that point. It was like a 10 or 11 pound limit, which on Beaver Lake back then was a really good limit, especially for a co-angler. And he did it by catching 2 smallmouth, a spot, and 2 largemouth on that jig. It was unbelievable. I could not believe it. So while we were out there, though, he was telling me about the jig and how back in Kentucky and Tennessee, like, he fishes a lot of the Cumberland region, you know, that Dale Hollow, that this black and yellow jig is like an old school thing. And it works all over the place, he said. So since then, I have experimented with a black and yellow jig, and I have found that it works really, really well wherever you go. The hardest thing about it is you can't just buy them. Most companies don't offer a black and yellow jig, so I end up making my own skirts. And here's one of them. So it's not really chartreuse. It's more of a darker yellow, more just a straight yellow with black. In this case, this has got twice as much black as chartreuse. That's how I tie them, because if I do an even amount of chartreuse or yellow with the black, then at that point, the yellow color kind of overwhelms the black, in my opinion. And you don't want that. You want it to kind of just create highlights. And then, you know, he told me all he ever uses is a black chunk trailer. At that time, he was throwing a bigger jig. This is a smaller jig that I tied or put on a Dirty Jigs Scott Canterbury compact pitching jig. So it's a smaller profile here. So this is a smaller jig, but it's a killer little color. And I have done really well on this everywhere from Wisconsin all the way down to Florida. It seems to work extremely well in both clear water, tannic colored water, and muddy water. It kind of has features for everything. I don't know what it is. I really don't know why the fish like it, but it's a great jig, especially if you're fishing around multiple species of bass. The spots love it, the smallmouth love it, and the largemouth love it. I don't know why it hasn't caught on more. I guess it was very popular back kind of in like the 80s and the 90s in that Kentucky region, but you don't ever see anyone throwing it anymore. And guys, I'm here to tell you, it's worth tying some of these up. The fish haven't seen them. It's a whole different look for a jig, and it catches a lot of fish. I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson on Beaver Lake that day. I mean, I would have bet so much money that he would not have caught anything. That he would have, like, I just looked at him. I was like, this guy is nuts. And then he just went on to put on a clinic and had a great tournament. And it was because of his black and yellow jig, the bumblebee jig, or whatever it is you want to call it. That's what I've always referred to it as the bumblebee jig. But I'm telling you guys, you need to tie some of these up. If you're lucky enough to have a jig manufacturer that makes the color, great. But like I said, it's really, really tough to find that color. So give it a try. Go make yourself some bumblebee jigs. Head out to the lake, and I'm telling you, you'll catch some bass on it. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned for tomorrow's tip.